guys, welcome back. So last time we worked on the item loader where we now have our parser, which is using tinyxml2, and we'll be reading XML files to load our items. So today we're actually going to do the same thing but for equipment. Equipment is a bit more involved because there's more things to equipment. You have your weapon types, your properties, and those things as well. First thing I'm going to want to do is create a few utility functions. Let's open up our weapons real fast. Or equipment, equipment.cpp. So here we have our stat modifier. We're going to have that in there. We're going to have our modifier type. And we're going to have weapon properties and armor properties as well to go along with our equipment. So our weapon also has weapon properties and stat modifiers, and our armor has armor properties and stat modifiers as well. So we could probably take the sell price out. We'll do that later. But we could probably take this out and we'll just have it automatically set to half the buy price. So let's see what we're going to do right now. First thing we're going to do is let's open up our utilities. So we have our utilities. We're going to need a couple more of these to change our types. So we're going to need, let's include equip. Equipment.h. And we're basically going to have to do the same thing. So equipment. Equip type, and it's going to be equip type from string. We're going to need our weapon properties, weapon type, and that'll be weapon type from string, armor type, and then we're going to have our modifier type. And elemental type. Okay, so let's quickly make these. So our equipment type is pretty straightforward. So basically do the same thing we did before. So we're going to have a weapon. And then we're going to go if equip type is equal to weapon. This is else if. Oops, it's all capitals. I was just trying to copy that. And accessory. And I believe that's all we have, so else, and we'll copy this. Let's see, yeah, so just the three types, and then return no type if it's not one of these. So the same thing with weapon from string. So weapon type, sword, if dagger, bow, staff. And then else if, not else if. I believe it's not a weapon. Yeah, not a weapon. The onus really is on whoever's writing the XML files to make sure that they're putting the proper word in there. Because if you don't put the right word, or the right spelling, it will return not a weapon. That's one of the major downfalls for using strings, but that's okay. It works for us. So headgear, if armor type is equal to headgear, else. So headgear, chest, we'll just call it chest. There's chest and body. And footwear. And the last one would be not armor. So we can just do this. So modifier types. This one we have a few more of. So what kind of types do we have? We have strength. So if mod type equal to strength. Intelligence. Dexterity. Hopefully I spelled that right. Speed. Stamina. And elemental. Or no type. And the last one is elemental type from string. So what are the elemental types that we have? We have fire. So if elemental type is equal to fire, earth, wind, water, ice. Ice is basically water. I don't know why I started doing capitals everywhere. I guess capitals would be easier. And the last one is lightning. And no type. Okay, so those are the utility functions that we're going to need. So before we actually start creating the equipment loader, we're going to want to create basically the same thing we did with the item. We're going to have our XML file. We're going to have a definition of how we want to read this weapon or armor. So let's do that now. Add new item. And this is just going to be weapon defs.xml. Okay. And we're going to do it basically the same way. Weapon defs. So the same with the item defs. We're just going to have this one file, and then you just add in your items list. If you have a new item you want to put in, you just add it to the list. So we only have to have one file, and then when we want to get that item, we go, or create that item, we go. All we do is give it the name in our create function, right? So if you see our item loader, all we're doing is giving it the object name. It's going to this file and it's looking through this file to find that name. If it finds this name, it grabs the rest of the data from it and then creates the item. That's basically what we want to do for the weapon. So let's do that as well. So weapons. So the same thing. We have weapons inside of weapon defs. And what is that weapon? And then we have individual weapons. Weapon. So the first thing we're going to want is the name, and this one will just be Iron Sword. You guys remember that game, Iron Sword? Maybe I'm dating myself. Iron Sword for NES, or Wizards and Warriors. That was a fun game. Description. Durable sword made of iron. You can put whatever you want for the description. By price. Oh wait, no. Let's do type first. Type. And it's just going to be a weapon type. That's for the equipment type. We want a weapon type. And then the weapon type has its own type. So weapon properties. So by price. And this one would be 300. Again, you can do whatever you want with pricing or whatever. Weapon properties. Properties. Awesome. So the weapon properties will have the attack power. And this one will have an attack power of 20. Now it has your weapon type. And this is a sword. This is where we were getting into, if we go back to our utilities real fast. So now it's going to check here for our weapon type, sword, and create this enum for us. And then that's it for the weapon properties. And now we have our stat modifiers. Stat modifier. So stat modifier, we have a mod value. Let's give this one a mod value, just so it has it. So we'll just call it mod value. And we'll give that a value of 5. What are we going to be? So mod type. What will we be modifying? And that's going to be strength. We're going to modify. This iron sword for some reason is going to increase their strength by 5. Now that's just for testing. We can take that out later. So that's one. Let's do two. Let's do 2 weapons. So let's copy this. So we basically have a blueprint of what we want to do. And then this one we'll just call broadsword. Is that how you spell broad? That's all right. Description. Heavy sword. We'll just call it a heavy sword. It's a weapon, and its buy price. We'll put this one to 500. Attack power, 25. And it is a sword, and we're not going to give it any stat modifiers. So it's not going to even have a stat modifier. So it should, if it doesn't have a stat modifier, it should automatically create an empty one for you. That's our goal here. So we have our weapons defs. So now let's do armor defs. They're basically the same thing. Go here, add. We could have put them all together, but I think it's cleaner to have separate. And we'll do the same thing. We'll call this armor defs.xml. armor defs. And we're going to have, because armor itself is plural, I'm going to use arms here. And then separate everything by armor. So each is, so we'll have our arms, and then armor will be the individual. So it's going to start again, it's going to have name. And we're just going to call this a leather shirt. Description. Simple shirt made of quality leather. The reason why we're going to have a description is because the description will be on the screen when you're going to buy the item or equip the item. So it's going to let you know what it is. Just a little description of what the item or armor is. What type is it? It's an armor type. Yeah, we're going to have a buy price. This is an expensive leather shirt. And then now we need armor properties. Defense power. And I'll have a 20 defense. Armor type. That'll be chest. And that's good for armor properties. This one, we'll give it a stat modifier. Mod value of 2. Mod type of speed. So this one will be modifying the speed. We'll do another one, and we'll just call it a leather cap. Snug leather cap, leather that provides little defense. It's armor. We'll make this $125. We'll give it a 7 for defense power. This is headgear. And it's not going to have a stat modifier. Alright, so there's our armor defs and our weapon defs. So now we can start our equipment loader. So let's go to utilities. So the same idea. We're going to want to go here. H file. Equipment loader.h. Unlike the items, equipment's going to be a little bit more in depth because we have our weapon properties and our stat modifiers. So we're going to have to, first let's include equipment. And let's include our parser. So we're going to have a class, equipment loader. And it's going to be public child of parser of equipment. And then we're going to have private, public. So in our privates, we're going to have our file path. Let's see, string ms file path. And we're also going to have bool if we are loading weapons. And we're also going to have weapon properties. This will return a weapon property. Create weapon properties. And this is going to take in a tiny XML2 XML element pointer, and we'll just call that XML element. We're gonna have two more functions. Create armor, and this one will be create stat modifier. Armor stat modifier. And we're going to have our equipment loader constructor. That's going to take in a const std string reference file path, and we're going to check to see if we're creating weapons, and we will default that to true. So yes, we're creating weapons. By default, we're creating weapons. And then we're going to have our destructor, and then we're going to have std. Now we have to do our override function, shared pointer of equipment, create object from file const std string object name, and this is an override because this is a virtual function from our parser. Okay, let's create these. Let's go to our constructor really quick. And let's initialize our as file path. And mb weapon loader. Awesome. And we're also going to want to do our mdocs. So m XML doc, if you remember from last video, std make unique tiny XML2 XML document. Okay, so let's quickly do these little helper functions, our create properties functions. And if you, as you see, we're handing in we're sending in an XML element. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is create another XML element. XML element pointer, and we'll call this p weapon props. Yeah, p weapon props is equal to the XML element that we send in. First child element, whoops. Weapon properties. So it doesn't know what XML element is because we didn't go using namespace tiny XML2. There, now we know. And while we're here, we might as well include a few things. And let's include our utilities, JRPG utilities. Let's include the item creator because we're going to need that. And let's include assert. So we're going to need that as well. Okay, so we have our weapon properties, and I think we're going to need a logger as well. Let's just include, actually let's do it up here. So we have our logger, and so we're going to check if not p weapon props. So if we don't have any weapon properties, or someone forgot to write it, we're just going to send back an empty weapon properties. if I could type. And if so, let's get the attack power. First child element, attack power. So remember, when you're doing your elements and stuff, make sure that it is exactly the same way that you typed it in here. So if we go here, so the attack power, that's what I'm looking for. So we got to make sure it looks just like that. Attack power, and it does. If it doesn't, it's going to come back as null pointer. So we're getting the attack power, int attack power is equal to p attack power. So we're checking here ATOI. We're using this little ternary operator. If attack power, send back ASCII to integer attack power get text. Else, send back 0. Does that make sense? So we're checking to see if this is null pointer. If it is not null pointer, we're getting the attack power. If it is, we're just setting it to 0. We don't want to fail here. If the person forgot to put the attack power, then we just want to keep going. Set it to 0. If 0 wasn't their desired result, they will know. Or you could put an error there and stop it if you like. So get the weapon type, XML element, pointer, p weapon type is equal to p weapon props, first child element, weapon type. So we're going to do the same thing with the ternary operator, but we want just the string. So const std string weapon type string is equal to p weapon type std string Okay, so we're doing the same thing. We're checking to see if this is a null pointer. If it's not null pointer, we're going to construct a string from the weapon text. If not, we're sending back an empty string. And then we want our weapon properties. And then we'll just go weapon properties, weapon type. And we'll call this just type is equal to weapon type from string. That's why we created that before. Weapon type string, and then we're just going to return alright, let me get rid of this. Alright guys, so that's the weapon properties done there. And that's going to be enough for this video because it's actually getting quite long. We're already past the 30-minute mark. It might be a bit less after editing, but why don't you guys still take what we've learned in this episode and why don't you try to create the armor properties and the stat modifiers yourself. So use these as a guideline of what you need to do and then fill these out. The create armor properties and create stat modifiers. That'll be just like a little bit of homework for this video. And if you have any trouble with it, don't worry. We're going to handle this in the next episode. The next video, we're going to do this and finish off the rest of this class. If you have any questions or anything, please leave a comment below. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.